Hello, everybody. My name is Tanisha, and I will be moderating today. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and I will either respond by typing or I will respond by asking Dylan to answer the question live while he does his drizzle. So Dylan, off to you.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's been a while since we've done a drizzle class. It's probably been a month or two. So I was kind of excited to get back into it today. And this is a bit of a different class for us. You've probably seen us pour a lot on flat canvases. And that's the beauty of pouring art and fluid art in general. It's great to work with canvases, but we wanted to kind of break outside that box a little bit and try some different projects that are on surfaces that you may not necessarily think of when you think of a pouring class. So we are going to be doing our giant terracotta pots here today. And these are really, really fun because you can do this on any kind of pot, and really you can translate this into any kind of 3D project, whether it be a lampshade or a vase or a lamp base. A different kind of pot. You don't necessarily have to pour directly on terracotta. You can do a glazed ceramic pot. There are a lot of different ways to use pouring with 3D objects. And so I'm excited to kind of show you the process for 3 different pots here. So I'm going to start with paint skins. That's my one to my right here, this band of color. It looks like we poured directly on this rim here, but we actually poured into a pan and then Mod Podged this onto our pot. Then we also have this great drip one that you can see that we have flipped the pot over and dripped the paint down the sides and kind of let it stop about halfway down the pot. So it looks like it's kind of growing up from the bottom. And then we also have this great little splatter guy. So I'm going to show you these 3 techniques. We're going to start with our paint skins. And I kind of want to introduce to you the concept of a paint skin. So if we want to go overhead, I think in our supplies, we might have had a note about pouring some paint ahead of time. And this is why. So you'll see us pour a lot in all kinds of different baking sheets. And the great thing about these baking sheets, whether they're permanent, really heavy duty baking sheets or these little disposable ones, they're almost always non-stick, so that when we pour our paint, you can actually peel your paint up and use it. So this is the result of a project that we poured. And then I removed my project and swirled this paint around in the pan. And then we're going to use this paint to craft with. So in your supplies, I think we listed some scissors and some Mod Podge to attach this to your pot. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my first little clay pot here. And again, we refer to these as paint skins, but you can basically use any kind of dried paint. You could also, to get this effect, you could mask off your pot and pour directly on it. This is just a really, really easy way to get a very controlled pattern right off the bat. And like I said, we're going to be using Mod Podge. I think I had Mod Podge Gloss or matte in the supply list, and those are perfectly fine. I'm going to put these pots outside, so I'm actually going to use our Mod Podge outdoor. There are a lot of different great Mod Podge formulas, and this one is great for outdoor projects, but we can also use that matte and gloss if you're just going to keep these pots inside, and that would be totally fine. And even, these will have a good life outside as well, because the FolkArt Drizzle paint is actually water-based, non-toxic, and indoor-outdoor. So you can use this on projects that you intend to end up outside. So that's a great thing about FolkArt Drizzle. And I have jumped ahead of myself a little bit. I started to get into the project, but I wanted to remind you guys, today we're going to be showcasing FolkArt Drizzle. And this is a complete fluid art painting program where we have this paint that is all in one. If you're new to pouring, you may know that a lot of people end up mixing paint with a pouring medium and paint that way. But the great thing about FolkArt Drizzle is that we have mixed the medium into the paint. So this is ready to use out of the bottle. And they come in these great large bottles. We have several different kit sizes as well. We've got a lot of different little colorway kits. This is our metallic kit, and these come in just over 4.5 ounce bottles. So we have a lot of different products here in the Drizzle line. One of the tool sets that we have is our Drop Swipe Stir Tool Kit. I think I put that on the product listing or the project listing. And that is a great tool set to just have in general when you're doing pouring art. But we're going to use some of these little droppers today. and I'm just excited to get started. So do we have any questions before we get started, Tanisha?
No questions yet.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I am going to tell you some of the colorways as we go along. I had a color list on our supply list. So if you have any questions about those, we're going to be using the exact colors that I listed, but you can use any colors that are in the FolkArt Drizzle line for these projects. We have made the color palette so that it goes with all of the paint goes together, and we have beautiful, beautiful colors, metallics, specialties like our color shift. There's a lot of different formulas to get your hands on. Okay, so to begin here, like I said, we've already poured our paint into this little pan, and I'm going to peel some up, and we're going to grab our scissors and trim a chunk off. And you don't have to be super perfect with this. Just cutting a few inches. And then what we're going to do here is grab our pot, and we're just going to give a general measurement to see how much we need. I think for the sake of this class, I'm not going to do the whole all the way around, but it's really easy since your pattern is so fluid and kind of quirky. You can very easily pick back up and make a seam if your paint skin doesn't wrap all the way around. So I'm going to go back now and kind of straighten out this line. And all we're going to be doing is Mod Podging this to the rim of our pot. So it really gives your flower pot a lot of flair. I know we're kind of in the middle of summer now, but it's not too late to grab some flower pots and start planting, whether it be indoors or on your patio. Again, FolkArt Drizzle is indoor outdoor, so feel free to use this on projects that may see some of the elements. That's totally fine because we formulated the paint to work in those scenarios.
And Dylan, we do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Carmen asks, can we use it on wood?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few projects coming up, I think, in August that are on wooden lamp bases. You can absolutely use FolkArt Drizzle, whether it be out of the bottle or in this paint skin form on wood. That's a great, great question. Okay, so I got my line nice and crisp, so I'm happy with that. You can see that goes around the edge of my pot perfectly. So now that I've kind of measured and figured that out, we're going to start with our Mod Podge. And I'm just grabbing a normal brush, and we're going to grab our Mod Podge Outdoor. The great thing about Mod Podge Outdoor is how thick it is. So it really helps grab on to our FolkArt Drizzle paint skin. You know, paint skin, it's almost like, it's basically a solid little slab of acrylic. So you can really get creative with it. We often show people how to stencil with it. You can cut words and letters out of it. And since this Mod Podge Outdoor looks a little creamy right now, just like most other Mod Podge formulas, it will dry completely clear. And I would recommend going over it afterwards to add a sealing coat to it. So I've just added a generous coat, and we're going to place our skin. We're just going to kind of go with the flow here. I'm going to place it down. Go around the edges, make sure I've got a good seal. Have some extra. Add a little bit more of my outdoor Mod Podge. You can see it just goes on really easily. That Mod Podge Outdoor is so thick, it gets a nice grip right onto that paint skin, and that is not going anywhere and will be safe outside. That's a great plus to it. Okay, so now we've got our band of paint, and I'm just going to go and loosely trim around the edge. I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra to hang over, because again, we're going to put a plant in here, so it's okay if we kind of tuck the edge in. And see, I can go back and use this strip for any other of my projects. I'm going to set it back on my little tray there. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a trick here. You can tell, you know, when you try to wrap something with something that's not super pliable, you're going to get these little creases. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and about every inch or so, we're going to trim it so that it lays nice and flat.
So Dylan, while you're doing that, we have two different questions. The first one is from Verna. I hope I'm saying that right. And she says, for the skin, did you add water to it?
No, that's a great thing. You'll start to see once we start pouring how fluid FolkArt Drizzle is. That's just the great part of FolkArt Drizzle. It's a really, really low viscosity, fluid acrylic pouring paint. So it is made to flow, and it's made to be kind of rubbery almost. So yeah, we didn't have to add anything. I think there's oftentimes a lot of confusion with pouring where you have to add that medium or water to thin your paint down. The reality is if you use, say, our normal FolkArt acrylic paint in the little 2-ounce bottles, that would be not a great project idea, because you're going to end up getting really muddy colors if you just pour with acrylic paint. So what we've done is we have made this paint do a lot of different tricks. So we have gotten it to be nice and thin so that you can move it across your canvas. It's still really opaque, that beautiful color. And the biggest thing about the pouring medium that we've mixed into this paint is that it keeps the colors separated. So if you had done this dripping technique, as soon as I get this Mod Podge on, I'll show you the dripping technique on the pot that we're about to do. And if you were to do that with regular acrylic paint, your colors would run together and you'd get a really muddy look. It would not be very pretty. So that's really the reason you want to use a specific paint developed for pouring, because we've gone in and we figured out all the issues that you would normally have if you were to just pour with regular paint. So you can see there, if we had done that with acrylic paint, Apple Barrel, or FolkArt, it would have run together and you'd have a bunch of slimy brown little runs there. So that's a big part of FolkArt Drizzle. Okay,
so Dylan, before you move on, we do have two other questions.
Yeah.
One is, what colors were in that slab? Do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. So for this one, we used our pink. That's one that we have right here, Island Hop. Then we have our aqua color, which is, I'm trying to think, I have it over here somewhere. This is one of our specialties, actually. This is Mint to Be Flash. This is an iridescent. And then we have our Gold Rush glitter. So you can see that gold glitter is you can kind of tell when the light hits it there.
Okay, and then the next two questions are sort of similar, so I'm going to put them together. One is from Veronica H. and one is from Carrie, and it says, what other ways can you use the skins? And then Carrie says, can you use the skins over something you've already painted with multi-surface FolkArt paint?
Yeah, absolutely. The skins, just as I was kind of highlighting earlier, this is basically, you could treat this like a sheet of paint. If you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can run this through your cutting machine. If you want to make a design out of it, like I said earlier, you can stencil with it. So there are some great stencils in Michaels. You can just lay the stencil over your paint skin and then, excuse me, then use an X-Acto blade and cut it out. I actually have a planter over to my side. I'm going to go grab that really quick to show you another way. So this is another project that we did with FolkArt Drizzle. And this is just a little ceramic planter. Obviously, we don't have a plant in it right now. But you can see we've done a paint skin. We've wrapped the skin around our planter. You can see how beautiful and shiny that is. And then, excuse me, we've gone back and we've used a little stylus and we've actually added some little mandala dots with FolkArt dots. So there's a lot of different ways to use paint skins. I encourage you guys to try it out. Like we said, like they're very, very versatile because you can use them for basically any crafting technique that you would use paint. It's just, you can control it really, really well because you've got a sheet, you're not working with wet paint. And so that gives you some different project opportunities than you would have if you were, say, pouring directly out of the bottle, because we've got this, I just finished our planter here, and you can see we've got all that striation and all those patterns. But if you had tried to do this out of the bottle, you would have gotten paint all over the sides here. You probably would have gotten paint going down into your pot. It would have been really messy and hard to make that really ornate design. So that's why we pour this into the pan, and it just gives you so much control and so much more creativity. So those are really great questions. Okay, so we're going to move on from paint skins, and we're going to talk about kind of a fun one here, which is splatter. Now, splattering might be pretty straightforward to most of you. If you've painted before or been in the craft community, splattering is just about as basic as it gets. You know, you can have kids do this. It's fun for everybody, and I had a fun time doing this one. But we're just going to grab another pot here. I'm going to show you. We've just got our pot, blank pot. Grab the rest of this sticker. And we're going to grab a few different colors. This is where we're going to get into the colors that I had on the supply list. So the first one is going to be Neon Sunshine. Excuse me. Then we have Sea Level, this beautiful ultramarine blue. We've got our Island Hop. Oh, excuse me. Then let's see, which other one do we have here? Neon Pop. This is this great orange color. Got some dust in my throat. Okay. And those are the 4 colors that we used on this. I think I also pulled in some Royal Velvet. Yes. So here are all of our colors. I've got those laid out. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab some different tools to help us out here. Now, you can use a lot of different tools to splatter with. And I'm going to be using some paintbrushes. This is great for old paintbrushes that you don't necessarily have any use for anymore if they've kind of gotten a little crusty over time and you don't want to use them to paint your projects, or the bristles have gotten really stiff because you haven't cleaned them out. This is a great time to pull those out. So what we're going to do is pour some of our paint into some cups. And we're just going to, it's very straightforward. We're just going to splatter right onto our planter. To the side here. I think we'll start with our Neon Sunshine, our bright yellow. Great thing too, we have this little removable cap, this little flip top cap, and you can use the paint right out of the bottle. And we're actually going to do that for our dripping project. But there are a lot of different tools and ways that you can do this. And like I said earlier, we do have this drop swipe stir toolkit. And one method is to use these large tongue depressors in the back, and those you can also use to splatter, and then you can just clean them off and reuse them.
So Dylan, while you're setting that up, we do have a question. Verna says, does the paint have an odor to it, and can you use it indoors?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we are in the studio today. We are not worried about any kind of masks or anything like that, because this is a water-based, non-toxic paint. So you have no need to worry about any kind of smell. Of course, if you smell close enough, it does have a little tiny odor. It definitely smells like paint, but it's not like an oil-based paint where you have a really, really pungent odor in the room. So that's why we're using it in the studio today. I'm coughing because I must have stirred up some dust in here, but you are totally able to use this outside, inside, wherever you feel comfortable. But yes, this does not have a really heavy scent to it. That's a good question. Okay. Got some MVPs with some water. Thank you, Emma. Okay, so this is going to be as simple as getting some paint on our brush, and we're just going to splatter it. And you can do this however you want. This is really, really easy and really able to be creative. And we're just going to do a little bit of every color here. And you're going to start to notice that because this paint is formulated not to run into itself, we're definitely going to see a little bit of blending because the colors are going to be right on top of each other, but they're not going to be muddy, which is a huge, huge deal. If you were doing this with regular acrylic paint, if you have paint overlap, it's going to get really kind of brown and black looking. Okay, so you can kind of see how we're going there. And I'm just going to kind of go through my colors, go back and forth. So experiment with this.
I have 2 more questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions today. Thanks everyone for being involved and giving us questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carrie says, do you wash this off in a bucket or can you rinse down the sink? Do you need soap to clean brushes?
Those are all great questions. So again, this is water-based. So you can clean up with just warm soapy water. You don't have to have any kind of special like turpentine or any kind of paint stripper like that. You can use soap and water in your regular kitchen sink. It's not going to be a problem. You just want to make sure you do it while the paint's wet. So if you get some on your hands or other projects or things that you didn't want to get it on, you can wash that off very easily with soap and water. The tools as well. We have the Drop Swipe Stir Toolkit. We also have some different pouring cups. They are these great, really heavy duty plastic, and those wash out really, really quickly and easily with some soap and water as well. So really good question. So I don't think you need a separate place to wash your project supplies off if that's what you were asking. So yeah, you definitely don't have to treat this special like a house paint or something like that.
Okay, and then just one more. Carmen says, can we pour this paint on ceramic?
That's a great question. Absolutely. Yes. FolkArt Drizzle is multi-surface, so it does have a sealer that helps bond to those slick surfaces. So absolutely. And like I said earlier, we did use, we poured us paint skin and then we attached it to this smooth ceramic little planter. So that's just proof right there that it works great. All right, now we're going in with our neon pop. See, again, it's super, super simple to splatter this. It's kind of fun. If you have some younger kids that aren't necessarily artists yet, but they love crafting and painting, this is a great way to get your whole family involved. Now, I do say that, but you know, if you have never seen one of our Michael's classes, go back into Michael's YouTube channel and watch some of our previous Michael's classes with FolkArt Drizzle. Tanisha and I have both taught them, and this is a great product for professional artists as well. You know, you'll know that there are a lot of different brands in the game right now, and we have a really great product that you don't have to mix. That's one of the biggest things, is that a lot of the products out there, you have to mix a pouring medium into a paint base. So we've taken all the guesswork out of it. You don't have to worry about getting a medium. You can't use water or anything like that. We've really made this specifically for the paint pourer or the fluid artist. Got a few more here. I'm going to go in with some smaller ones. Okay, so now that we have about 3 colors on here, I'm going to lift it up and show you how those colors are not muddying. So you see we have some colors overlapping there, that blue and yellow and orange, and those aren't mixing together. If we were doing this with regular acrylic paint out of the little small bottles, we would start to see a kind of a muddy, ugly brown color forming, and that's not pretty to anybody, especially when we're trying to do a really, really bright, fun project.
Okay, Dylan, this is one that we talk about in our classes sometimes. How long does it take to dry?
That's a good question. Hard one to answer. So that depends on where you are in the country, or in the world rather, and the humidity. But generally, I would say it takes about a week to be able to display your project. So you want to make sure that you have let your project dry, and you can kind of come back in an inconspicuous area, just test it, see how dry it is. The great thing about FolkArt Drizzle is it has a beautiful high gloss finish. So it'll be hard to tell if your paint is actually dry, because you can see the one here, you can see that paint. Oop, dumped my contents out there. You can see the paint is super, super glossy. So you just want to come by and check it. Unfortunately, pouring art in general is just something you have to be patient with. You have to wait for it to dry completely, especially because FolkArt Drizzle is so good at leveling, self-leveling. And if you pour a really thick paint pour, you definitely want to wait several weeks probably to let that dry, depending on the humidity in your area and what time of year it is. So good question, hard to answer. Sorry, we don't have a super direct answer because it really does depend on where the project is. I would not recommend putting a fan on your projects because if you try and accelerate the drying process, you can actually create ripples in it, or you can make it crack. So I would avoid using a dryer or a hair dryer or a fan. Don't do that. Unfortunately, this is just an art that takes patience.
And I also just want to add to that explanation that when you're doing something like the paint skins, although it can seem completely dry on the top, once you lift it up, sometimes you'll find wet paint underneath. And in that case, you'll want to obviously wait longer.
Right.
I have had that happen with paint skins before and just knew, okay, well, we need a little bit more time on this one.
Right. And again, there's a lot of factors. A lot of times, the thing that is most important is how thick the pour is. If you've got a really thin pour, that's basically the texture of your canvas, that'll probably dry in like 2 days, 3 days. But I wouldn't push it ever because, you take a lot of time to make your piece of art. So you definitely want to, give it the respect and time that it deserves. You definitely don't want to just rush and try and get it finished. Although I am very impatient when it comes to art, this is definitely one that's worth the wait.
So this is a fun comment and maybe idea that we can try on another video. Carrie says you could probably use the metallic colors in a dry brush look over furniture or paintings to accent them. Oh
yeah, absolutely. The metallics are beautiful. We do have some examples of those. I'm not sure if I have them right next to me, but the metallic paints, we also have neons. So we're using some of the neons today. Like Island Hop is the neon pink. We've got neon sunshine and neon pop. And we also have flash iridescence, which if you know our FolkArt line, you'll know that we have another line called Color Shift. And that is a great iridescent paint that shifts in changing light. So you have different colors in each of those paint formulas. So it's almost like a metallic with an iridescent shift in it. It's kind of hard to explain. But yes, that's a great suggestion. We have not done a ton of furniture with FolkArt Drizzle, but I am excited to try that. I did just see a question pop up if the paint will come off if the planner gets wet. Yep. So that's a great question. The answer is no in most situations, because if you're using a terracotta pot, the terracotta is incredibly porous and it's going to grab onto that paint and it's going to suck it in. So this paint will not be coming off with a little bit of water. If you are using something like a super, slick ceramic pot, like I said, this is multi-surface, so it's meant to go on those and withstand some elements. But if you're, if it's constantly getting drenched in water, it's not going to hold up for super, super long time. But that's why we do it kind of in a decorative way. Like if you wanted to, I would put maybe a liner in here if you're worried about the paint staying nice and fresh. But I'm going to put regular plants in these. Obviously, the plants we have on the set are fake, but you can definitely put regular plants in these and water them just as you would normally, and there'd be no problem. So I would say you are good to put this outside under a patio, and you'd be totally fine.
And another way to answer that question, Dylan, which you mentioned in the beginning, is you could, if you were very worried about that, maybe you live in an area with a lot of extreme weather, you could put a coat of Mod Podge Outdoor on top. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's also a bunch of Mod Podge aerosol sealers that are great, and FolkArt sealers. So there's so many options that Plaid makes. So that's a great comment. If you are just nervous about it, if you do fine art painting, you'll hear Andy Jones say, just put the varnish on. It's okay. Just if you want to go that extra step just to give yourself some peace of mind, sometimes it's worth it for that, even though we have created this to work really well under those different conditions. Okay, I'm going to give you a peek here. This one's just about done. All right, so there you go. So you can see, again, we've been painting this for like about 5 minutes, and that paint is staying right where I splattered it. Obviously, there's some overlap, but you don't have that paint mixing together and turning brown. And I know that sounds kind of simple, but it's a big deal, because if you do use the regular acrylic paint, you'll notice it will turn brown if you try to do any kind of fluid art or layering on top of each other. They're not meant to stay separate, but that's one of the amazing things that we've built into this formula. Okay, I think I'm going to move on to our last big pot here, and this is going to be a huge one. This is my personal favorite, and I think it's the most impressive one. So I'm going to kind of change up my area and clean up. Let us know if you have any other questions. I'm happy to answer. It'll take me a second to get this giant terracotta pot up on the table, so I'd be happy to kind of answer some questions in the interim.
So Dylan, there is a question that I do not know the answer to, and I'm not sure if you do either. On average, what is the price range for each bottle of paint?
I think that fluctuates depending on Michael's sales and promotions. So you're definitely going to want to check either michaels.com or go into your Michaels store, because this is still in store on an end cap. So you'll definitely be able to find it. But yeah, I think prices fluctuate quite a bit. So you'd have to go in store to see, because I just know that I have looked several times and it goes up and down depending on the different promotions at Michaels. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our front facing camera. So you see, I've got this giant pot, and I was thinking, I was going through our projects and our extra supplies in our rooms, and I was just like, you know what, let's transfer this guy up a little bit, because in my opinion, it's my absolute favorite of the outdoor projects that we've done with FolkArt Drizzle. You can just see how beautiful that is. Now, I will say, I'm gonna show you this technique to get started, but I did do this over the course of a day, about a few hours, 3 or 4 hours, just to give it a minute to kind of settle in between some of my colors. Now, like I said, we're going to paint on this. It's going to be great. It's going to look just like this, but I do recommend doing that. Don't rush this, because you want to kind of control your drips. So you'll see what I mean when we start here, and I'll do one that's a little bit too much so you can see how it goes right down to the bottom of the pot. The goal here is to, have our paint kind of land about here. We don't want any paint on our rim. Now, if you do, go ahead, pour right on over it. But I think it looks really cool when we have some of these little drips kind of stopping midway on the pot. Like I said earlier, it kind of looks like the paint is flowing up from the bottom of the pot. And that's one of my favorite looks to the technique. Okay, so to the colors that we already had, we're going to mix in lava and neon limeade. So those are the only other 2 colors that we have here. You can also use, I think I might have had Cloverfield on the supply list, one of the other kind of Kelly green colors. You can use that one as well. This one I just had nearby, and I thought I'd mix it up a little bit.
So Dylan, we do have a question, and I think the answer is somewhat like a dirty pour. So Sue asks, can different colors be mixed in one cup without becoming a brown mess and poured inside a clear Christmas ball?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know how mixed you're trying to get. Like if you're trying to make a color, the answer to that would be yes, you can make a color and blend. These colors blend beautifully together. Tanisha and I have both blended colors. But if you're trying to get a swirled effect, you can 100% do that with FolkArt Drizzle. So I would put it in your cup and just layer colors in. I wouldn't mix them in your cup, and then you would pour it into your ornament, and then use your ornament to kind of mix and blend your colors. And those colors would stay relatively separate. Now, if you mix it in the cup ahead of time, you're going to get a single color. You're going to get a really pretty color probably, but it's going to be blended together. The key is you want to kind of go back and forth between those 2. You don't want to blend it too much because then you just get a solid color. So I would pour your colors consecutively into a cup and then pour that into an ornament. Don't mix the cup, and then blend them with the ornament. Kind of turn it and let those colors run out into a separate cup. That would be really cool. I think we'll probably do that this year.
You could also experiment with pouring the paint directly into the ornament opening,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah.
almost the way you're
You don't
doing
even
it on
need
the
a cup.
pot. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
just in lines like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so there's not going to be a super, I'm not going to have a super rigid way of doing this. This is kind of free form. And again, I'm using this specific color palette, but you can use any and all of the colors in the FolkArt Drizzle line and you'll get a cool result. So I'm going to do this by watching my monitor here and I'm going to adjust it. I've got a little message on here. I'm going to clear that so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So we're just going to alternate between colors as we go. I'm going to start with lava. And I guess, I'll show you how we kind of work this together. This is kind of a tricky thing, but once you get the hang of it, it's really, really simple. But to start, maybe even practice on something. If you got an old ugly pot that you're not worried about, try practicing on that. And we're just going to pour right out of the bottle. So you can see that line coming down. And what I want is that line to stop about here. So again, there's not like a super scientific way of figuring this out, but we're just going to kind of evenly space out our colors so that it kind of looks like an intentional random assortment. And again, I'm just using the paint right out of the bottle because it has this great little flip top cap. It's got a nice little tiny hole so that I can control it. Wipe as I go here. This would be great now that I'm seeing this for Halloween. It'd be awesome. If you use our Halloween colors, we've got that neon pop, this lava color, get some gory, cool vibes coming out of here. Okay, so you can kind of see that I've just played with it a little bit and I'm getting those drips to stop. That's what we're going for. Again, you can keep going, but it won't look like a nice even drip if you get it all the way down on the bottom rim. It'll kind of flatten out onto your surface. So it's not going to look like a pretty random drip. So that's not what I'm going for. So I'm not going to do that. All right. Now we're going to go in with neon pop. This is that bright neon orange color. And I'm going to go a little bit shorter with these just to get some variety. This is all about kind of taking a step back and looking at it. Thankfully, I have a monitor here in the studio that I'm able to kind of reference as I pour. But you can also just do this right in front of you. If I were doing this when I did my other pot here, I did it in front of me so that I was able to see what was going on and kind of control it as it went. Okay, we're going to move on to our neon sunshine, this bright yellow. And I would say, even though the paint is not going to muddy on top of each other, this is where that time period comes in. I'm going to kind of do a few drips and cover the entire surface of the pot. And then I would come back later and then layer them over each other. Not because I'm worried about the color necessarily, but I just want those drips to stay really nice and uniform. And when it's on such a porous surface like this, it dries very quickly. Now we're going to go in with neon limeade. And you're going for random. Like I said, you want it to be random, but kind of controlled chaos, if you will. It's okay if they run together, because that'll be a cool look, but I'm just trying to keep them somewhat separate. Now, one thing I want to highlight is this is where you could be using your droppers from our Drop Swipe Stir Tool kit. It comes with 4 little eyedroppers, and these are great for even controlled colors. If you're trying to make your own colors and blend, like I said, if you mix 2 colors or 3 colors in a cup and blend them really, really well, you'll get a really pretty color, and you can use those droppers to pour your paint out. So it's just a great thing to have with you. But again, we did make the bottle so that you can use it right out of the bottle, which is a great thing. Now I'm going to go in with my neon or island hop, rather. It's bright pink color. And you can see, so I was really diligent to make sure that those red didn't run all the way down, and we've got great results so far. So they have not gone all the way down. So it just takes a little bit of practice.
Okay, so Veronica is asking about the kit that you just showed. She says, besides the droppers, what else is in the Drizzle kit?
Yeah, so we have a lot of toolkits, actually. This is kind of one of the best ones. It's, in my opinion, it's got the most tools. So this comes with 3 different swipers. So you get, let me grab them from in front of the camera here. So you get a variety of swiping tools. So this is one of them. It has a straight edge, this like tooth edge, and then this kind of rounded edge. We also have different combs in the kit. You get 2 different combs. This is one of them. You get a straight tooth comb and then a rounded tooth comb. And then you get 6 of the wooden tongue depressors, which are really useful. I know we use those a lot in the craft world, but these particularly just to have in your stash if you're blending colors or if you want to spread color on a canvas, they're awesome to have. And then, like I said, we have the silicone droppers. So we've got these great silicone droppers. You get 4 in the kit, and these are basically little syringes that you can scoop up paint and then drop right onto your project. These are great for splattering projects. If, like I said, if you wanted to blend colors, this is really great for this project, because if you're blending a color in a cup, you would no longer have the bottle to use as your little pour control tip there. So you can use these for that. Tanisha and I have used these on a lot of different projects and just in general in crafting. It's great to have these kind of eyedroppers around. You'll find a lot of uses for them as soon as you get them. They're really, really nice. Okay, we're going to continue here with Sea Level, or beautiful blue. Let's see. And then the kit that we were just talking about is the Drop Swipe Stir Tool Kit. And then I just saw another one. Can these be used on canvas? Absolutely. So definitely, I want to encourage you to go to Michael's YouTube channel and see some of our other classes from earlier this spring and in May, because we use Drizzle on canvas all the time. We made it specifically for canvas, but you know, this is just one of the benefits of it, that you can use it on other surfaces, but we use Drizzle on canvases all the time. I'll grab some projects just to show you.
And you can see quite a few right behind you.
Oh yes, of course. I want to show you some of my favorites here. So these are some examples of canvases. Tanisha did say we've got a bunch of canvases behind me, but these are some of my favorites. This is our flash iridescent optimistic flash color. You can see how beautiful that is, that purple to blue. And then these are our metallics. So yeah, absolutely. These are regular canvases that you can find at Michael's. Really, really fun to use on canvas. That's the primary craft trend that we use FolkArt Drizzle with. Okay, I'm going to put my last color on here, our beautiful purple Royal Velvet. Keep the questions coming, everybody. I think our class is about to wrap up. So if you have any other questions or comments, please let us know. I want to make sure I answer everybody.
There is one question. I'm not sure if I understand it, so maybe you will. It says, are the pure pour pigment paints the same as the spin drop pour paints, only in smaller bottles?
So the only thing I can think of that you're talking about is pure artist pigments. Those are a totally different product that kind of mimic an oil paint that we do make. We do make those, and they are available at Michael's. But those are not pouring paints for sure. You definitely can't use those to pour with. Those are more for fine art painting with brushes and palette knives and stuff. And then remind me of the second part.
I think you covered it.
Okay,
she was just also asking about the size, but I think she got her answer.
Yeah. So totally different product. Yes, I understand. When you go into Michael's, there's a ton of paint in the paint aisle. I totally understand the confusion.
And we make a lot of them.
Right. We do make a ton of them, and they're all for different things. So very valid questions you have there.
Okay.
Okay.
And we do have some more questions. We've got one. Can it be used on cardstock at 110 pounds?
I can't remember the different weights of cardstock, but I can only assume is 110 like the lowest, the thickest or something? I can't remember which way it is.
Thick.
Thick, yes. Then yes, absolutely. Just remember, with all wet media, you're going to get some kind of bend with paper traditionally. Like if you're doing watercolor, you're going to get a bit of a wrinkle on the paper. But I think, especially with watercolor, you can kind of heat those out and kind of iron them out. I wouldn't put an iron on FolkArt Drizzle, but you could definitely kind of, lay it under some books or something if you end up pouring on cardstock. That we haven't really tried that, but that's a great idea. If you're worried about that, that's another opportunity for you to use a paint skin. So if you were worried about your paint peeling or curling by putting a bunch of pouring paint on it, then you could definitely use a paint skin and use it as an element if you were like scrapbooking or designing cards or something. It's a great question.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, the next one was, can you show us how to make dots like for a mandala? And I believe they are referring to that first pot that you showed that was a paint skin, and then you did the mandala dots on it.
Gotcha. Yes, this little guy. Yes. So I don't have the tools to cover mandalas or dots today. However, I will say go to michaels.com and look up FolkArt dots. It's as simple as that. We've created a product that is specifically made for dotting and mandalas, and it's a great thick, heavy-bodied acrylic paint that comes out of a really, really thin nozzle. So you're able to get those really, really specific dots and lines, or however you want to use it. So look up FolkArt dots. I'm sure we'll have some classes coming up, so keep an eye out for that name. It's very simple, I know, but I think we'll have some of those coming up in the fall.
Okay. And then Sue S asks, if I want to paint the pot white first, what type of paint do you recommend?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on where the pot's going to go. So if you're going to put it outside, then I would use a FolkArt multi-surface, maybe in titanium or wicker white. If you're going to keep it inside and use it as decorative use, you could use FolkArt matte, just our original formula. The difference is the sealer that's in it. So if you're trying to resist moisture, you definitely want to use FolkArt multi-surface or Drizzle. Like Drizzle is a multi-surface formula, but that would be the short answer to that.
Okay. And then we've got, can you use this paint on tennis shoes?
Tennis shoes, we have not tried that. That's a very interesting idea. I imagine you can. The great thing about, FolkArt Drizzle is that it's really flexible. So you saw earlier how easy to maneuver that paint skin is. So you could definitely try using this on your shoes. I can't attest to how durable it would be because it's meant to be more of an art piece that you would put on a wall, but it is flexible. So I doubt that it would give you many problems.
And Victoria, if you try that, please let us know on our next video.
We would love to do that. We always need project ideas for these classes. So that would be a cool one.
All right, and we have, it looks like our last question, and this is something you touched on a little bit earlier. Veronica says, can you do a design on the paint skins using a Cricut? Yeah,
absolutely. So you can 100% put a paint skin through your cutting machine. So any kind of cutting machine that's out there, I think we've tried the big two companies here at Plaid, but we have put these on a mat. I can't remember what tack we used, what kind of mat, but we have run this through the cutting machine and we've gotten great results. I think you just have to experiment with it and use, depends on what kind of blades you have. I think you definitely need a longer blade because this is a lot thicker of a material. So whatever, I'm not super familiar with cutting machines, but if you had like a leather blade or something like that, I bet that would work great on this. But we have cut out some letters and decals before.
All right, that looks like about it for the questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, if you do create any of these projects, please hashtag Make It With Michaels and Plaid Crafts. We would love to see them. If you have any more questions about FolkArt Drizzle, you can head on over to plaidonline.com/drizzle. It's really easy to get to. It can be FolkArt Drizzle as well. It'll take you to the same place, and you can find out all kinds of information about FolkArt Drizzle. And of course, it is exclusive at Michael's. So head to your Michael's store and grab your favorite colors. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.